Hi, Bill. What's happening? I'm glad. Well, we're sitting here trying to make a film, and we're going up to the mountains to do the shooting now. And we got more film than we thought we had in there. So we could have filmed something else somebody was saying. And all this film is being wasted.
Are you going to take films up there?
Yeah, we're going to shoot some film up there, too.
I can show you.
Cut it.
Oh, you can't... Are you on?
Yep, go.
When the Biograph Company came to Cuddybackville the first time, they came on the little old two-train-a-day branch of the O&W to the station. Mr. PREDMORE would meet them at the station with the E.R. Thomas flyer, and Carrie Bitzer and Mr. and Mrs. Bitzer and Griffith and the Pickfords, and the rest would walk up to the hotel, which was about a little over half a mile. And when they came up there, Mother would meet them on the porch and wave her apron and say, "I'm glad to see you come." She also did the same thing when they left and said, "I'm glad to see you go." Well, then Mr. Powell, who was there too, he registered them, and the front room went to Griffith, and the one across the hall went to the Pickfords, and the rest were spread out. If they had the whole company there would be times when there would be 4 men in a room even, and sometimes sleeping on the porch, which was protected by aprons. Now, when they left for location, the flyer took the principal actors into it, and the rest were taken in a hay wagon driven by Mr. Alton Cuddyback. And Lester PREDMORE followed with the prop wagon, his own horse, Jerry. The first picture that was made was the Mended Lute, which was taken up on the Neversink River, in which they built a whole Indian
village. Now, as soon as I click it, as soon as I sit down, then we'll stop. Go.
Well, the first time that the pictures came to Cuddybackville, my father would meet the stars and important people at the station. Be Mary Pickford, Lottie Pickford, B.W. Griffith, Mr. and Mrs. Bitzer would be in the E.R. Thomas and go up toward the hotel. And the other people in the cast would straggle along behind them. And when they arrived at the hotel, Mother was always there to greet them and say, "I'm glad to see you come." And then, too, when they left, she would be there to say, "I'm glad to see you go." Then the rooms were assigned. D.W. Griffith received the first room in front of the hotel. Cut.
Yeah. No, we don't need that. Go ahead.
Early in the morning, they would again go out to location. And Mr. Bitzer, Mr. Griffith, and Mary, Bobby Heron, would go with the automobile, and followed by the hay wagon driven by Mr. Cuddyback for the rest of the cast. And following that would come the prop wagon, which was driven by myself, and Jerry, my horse, would trot along behind with the props. This particular morning that I'm talking about is when they made the Mended Lute up in the Neversink River, where a whole Indian village had been built under the supervision of Dark Cloud, who was a thoroughbred Indian. I think that's skip. One of the outstanding pictures taken at Cuddybackville was the Squaw's Love. In this Indian picture, Mabel Norman played the part of Wildflower, and her opponent was Silver Fawn. These two girls have a quarrel on the top of a high bank of the Neversink, in which Wildflower tries to stab Silver Fawn. Okay, I spoiled it, didn't I?
No, don't worry about it. Cut it for a second.
Silver Fawn stabs at Wildflower, and she throws herself in a back dive in which she misses a ledge below and lands into the river successfully. At this time, there were 3 cameras taking this scene, which was something new in photography. And the film turned out very successfully, and Mary was wished back to the hotel where she was made.
Mabel. You said Mary. Say it again.
Mabel Norman was wished back to the hotel where she had a warm drink at the Mission Bar. Well, outside of taking the movies outside, there was a rehearsal in the hotel, in the dining room, put on by Dark Cloud, where he taught them how to do a real Indian war dance. And at other times, when the rain kept the cast in, there was plenty of card games, and at night they played cards. And some nights Griffith would have my father with the red car take them down to Port Jervis or below Milford to a roadhouse down there where there was music. And then at other times, in the dining room, Mr. Headland had his spiritualist table going. And there was all kinds of table raising and rapping. And one night they heard a sound coming on the ceiling, which even Headland himself couldn't account for. But they found out that it was Mr. Griffith hammering with his shoe to keep quiet down there. The way that Cuddyback Bill was discovered by the Biograph Company was due to the fact that their president, J.J. Kennedy, had stayed at the Cuddyback Inn in previous summers, and he was very impressed with the mountains and the lakes and the canal and the rivers in which they could use in their film. The Biograph Company would arrive at the little station, which had 2 trains a day. It would be met by my father with the Thomas Flyer, and in that car went Mary Pickford and Lottie Pickford, Mr. and Mrs. Bitzer, and D.W. Griffith. The rest of the company followed them up, straggled along a little over half a mile to the hotel. And when they arrived at the hotel, they were met by Mother out there waving her apron at them, saying that she was glad to see them come. But she also waved when they left, saying, "I'm glad to see you go." Then the rooms were assigned by Mr. Powell. He had been there ahead of them. And D.W. Griffith was placed in the one room with a private bath, and across the hall was Mary and Lottie, and the rest of the rooms were allotted to different ones. Sometimes it got as far as 4 men in a room, but the house was always crowded, and yet they seemed to like it there because it was a different from New York.
Okay, cut off.
In the Indian pictures, it was quite a problem to get the makeup on the characters. And in fact, in the hotel, the only makeup room they had was the bathrooms. And so we had a building across the street called Tammany Hall. And Tammany Hall became the makeup room, especially for the men when they made up as Indians, because the war paint got as much on the walls as it did on the character. The company wanted to make a film called The Spirits of 1776, and there was an old fort dating back to the Revolutionary War down on the property of a man called by the name of Godefroy. His estate was immense, and my father didn't think that he would let them on the land. But he took Mr. Griffith down there, and Mr. Godefroy and Mr. Griffith became very, very friendly almost at once. And he opened the whole estate to him down there. And the movie was made about this fort, and Godefroy even got out food and a drink called Shandygaff for them.
You also supplied the, want to mention the horses?
Horses. He even furnished horses for this picture for them down there at this time. early in the morning sometimes, Mr. Griffith and Mr. Bitzer and Father would go out looking for new locations. And they wanted this locations, especially for 1776, and Father drove them down, and they found this fort on the Godefroy property, which they afterward used.
Hi, Bill. What's happening? I'm glad. Well, we're sitting here trying to make a film, and we're going up to the mountains to do the shooting now. And we got more film than we thought we had in there. So we could have filmed something else somebody was saying. And all this film is being wasted.
Are you going to take films up there?
Yeah, we're going to shoot some film up there, too.
I can show you.
Cut
I'll
it.
get you up in there. Mary Pickford was one of the most gracious women that ever came to Cutty-Dyville. Except one year was when she had got a little artistic temperament, and that was during after having been up there for about 7 years. And at the table, she didn't like the food at one time, and Mr. Kirkwood said, who was then, Mr. Kirkwood said, now Mary, that look, the food was good enough for you when you were back here when it first came up there, and he said, the same food, place you better eat. I think it was safe of that person. Right? Did you take that? Yes. Good.